Yuck. Don't do that to my face.
It wasn't to your face, it was to my glass of water.
But I was here. Me. Okay.
Would I make a good crab?
Yeah, when you walk sometimes you do give crab. It's your drunk/weed walk. You walk like you almost can't walk straight forward, so you have to walk a little sideways.
I've never been able to walk straight forward since childhood, so...
Oh, makes sense.
Always falling. Hello and welcome back to the Ghost Book Archive. This is Chapter 8. And I don't know what are we even calling today's theme? I'm not sure. But basically, this episode is all about revisiting some of our past work. Stuff that we have written maybe a year ago, maybe 10 years ago, just whenever. But it's all about taking things we've written in the past or off podcast and sharing it on here with each other and having a little discussion about it. As always, I'm Ryan, and I am joined by Zilver.
Hi. I don't know what to do. I'm just trying my best.
You're surviving. You're on the planet. You're on planet Earth. You're a human being. You're alive.
Yeah.
That's all anyone can ask.
Am I though?
Yeah. I think you're doing an okay job.
Thank you. So are you.
Thanks. That's not good enough. I want to be doing a fantastic job, a wonderful job, a marvelous job.
You want to be God.
You should read my first book. No, don't. That's awful.
I know. I can imagine.
That's what I should have been reading. I've got my extract for something to read here, but I should have been reading that instead. That would have been an interesting one. But we're not going there. There is literally a scene in that book where I go to heaven and I tell God that he is in my seat. Yeah. I wrote that when I was 16. That was 11 years ago.
Oh.
That was there was a whole scene as well where I was like crucified on the cross beside Jesus. And so in the book, there's a picture of me and it's me photoshopped onto Jesus on the cross.
Honestly, that's the book we should be reading about now. I mean, you should read a piece of it.
I don't know. I think I'm just going to forget that book exists.
Really? No, a book is a book. It's going to be out there. That's your legacy, man. If people like dig up your time capsules in 200 years, they're going to find that book and be like, oh my God, he's Jesus reincarnated.
That'd be hilarious. They're reading this and they take it all seriously and think that's what really happened.
Yeah. That's how probably a lot of old texts.
I'd believe it. Some fairy tales written down on a piece of stone or something, and then someone digs up. Oh my God, this was real.
Yeah. Exactly. I think that's a lot of what happens.
I believe that for sure. How do you feel about old things you've written?
I don't remember when I wrote these. Yeah, I went through my stories and poems and just found some pieces that I like. I tried finding something that I didn't have to edit so that it's just standing on its own, because I'm lazy and didn't want to edit.
That's not a great advertisement for the podcast. People just tuning in for the first time. Yeah, I just found the easiest thing that I didn't have to edit because I'm lazy. What a great intro to keep people watching.
That's my brand. I'm never gonna be trying too hard.
Okay. Yeah. Well, anyway, my thing might make up for it because mine are a bit more polished. Especially the extract of the book I'm going to read. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to read some of this because it's stuff that I normally when I write things, almost everything I was telling you the other day, I was struggling to decide what to choose to read because most things I write, I end up publishing. And so first I am going to read something from a book I have published, but the second part is I'm going to read a part of a screenplay I've written a couple of years ago now that I've not done anything with yet. So we will get to that. I'm excited to read that.
I'm excited to hear.
I'm excited for you to be excited to hear. So you're going to start us off. I believe you have written a poem that you're going to share.
It's a little poem. It tingles, and the dust starts to run away. Like critters scattering, frightened. Towards the wall they go, a brief rest, until it tingles, and they're on the move again.
You didn't even stumble once. I'm impressed. But to be fair, it was very short.
It's very short.
This could be about a lot of things. What is it about?
It's about dust. No, because, like, you know, when dust feels like sort of alive, because it moves,
Yeah.
because it's very light. So if you move, the dust moves around you. That's what I got the idea from.
How much dust is in this place?
Well, I totally didn't get inspired by my own place. Because I imagine like small dust creatures almost.
Dust mites. Real little dust mites that've got little legs and walk around.
Yeah.
So when did you write this?
Probably 1 or 2 years ago.
Was there something that inspired you to write this, or was it just
I
I'm going to
told
write
you,
this?
dust.
Yeah, but I mean, but what I mean is, like, when you sat down, did you think, "Oh, there's dust over there. I'm inspired by dust. I'm going to go sit down and write a poem about dust," or were you like sitting there thinking, what can I write about? Oh, dust. Where did it come from?
I don't actually remember, but I might have just thought about like dust and how it moves and wanted to write it down.
That makes sense. I do like it. I like the. Actually, I think my favorite my favorite part might be the single word "frightened," just on its own as a line. Frightened. I like that. I like just the use of one word. That's it. You're saying that the dust is frightened. I like the idea that the dust's frightened, and
Yeah,
I
that's what
like
I
the line before
mean.
it. The critter
Because it
scattering.
moves away from you as
Yeah,
if it's scared of you, you know? Because when
yeah.
you walk in a room, it just goes and lies near the wall.
No, I like it. The more I read it, every time I keep reading it over and over again with I'm just reading it, and every time I read it, I like it more. I like all the
Wow.
stuff about the movement. It's something so simple, but it really works. Like it makes sense, and
Yeah.
it's so vague. And I felt like when I read it and the first time when you read it out, and I was reading and the dust starts to run away, I'm thinking, is what is this about? I was thinking more maybe there's something else that's running away, and it's the dust's getting spread as that's happening. Um,
Mm.
but I like that you've gone the more actual literal route of it. No, it is the actual dust that's running. The dust
Mm-hmm.
is scattering away. I like that. I didn't expect that to be what you actually were writing about. So I like that. Towards the wall they go, a brief rest until it tingles and they're on the move again. Yeah, no, I like it. It's a very, very short poem, short and sweet. I like it. I could definitely see this as like part of a poem collection or something. If you had like a
Right.
little book of 30 poems or something, I could see it being one in a little book.
I would love to have a poem collection.
Yeah, to
Is
you
that a yes?
too. So, for my first thing I'm going to be sharing an extract from my second fantasy novel, The Pocket Factory, by Alexander Graham. That's my pen name. So, this is the second book in my fantasy series. If you want to know more about that, you can search it up. So, I'm going all the way in here. I'm going to page 333. And so this chapter is Elijah Part 4. And I know you've read my first book in the series, and I think you've read about half of the second book. So
Yep.
you've not gotten to this part yet. I think this is probably the next
Ooh,
one of the coming
exciting.
chapters just up ahead. But this is just an extract from this chapter. It's probably about
Mm-hmm.
a third of the chapter. It was one that really stuck with me when I wrote it because there's a really interesting character here that I really loved writing and creating, and I'm
Ooh.
excited to develop this character in the future books as well. We stumbled upon an eccentric figure clad in vibrant purple garments, utterly unsuitable for the weather. He appeared to be some sort of bard, standing a few paces away from a campfire and large tent, nestled beside the well worn, frost covered path leading towards Doberbowls. The man was erratically bouncing on the spot, repeatedly raising his knees to his chest. One hand held his flat cap on his head, and the other held a small rectangular instrument to his mouth that he was blowing into. Not so melodiously. Aha! The man exclaimed abruptly as we drew nearer, his breath escaping in visible puffs of mist. Welcome, friends, he declared, his voice strangely high pitched. I refused to believe it was actually his own. Who the fuck are you supposed to be? Inquired Gedake, ever the epitome of politeness. I be Covengloom, the man stated emphatically. I'm sure you'll have heard of me and my many adventures. Not a peep, replied Gadek. Oh, but I'm certain you have. You obviously just forgotten, the bard assured. I'm not the forgetful sort, Gadek insisted. Fear not, you shall remember soon enough, just as soon as I regale you with one of my renowned ballads, based on a true story, of course. I think not, Gadek said, resuming his stride and signalling our departure. Covengloom, was it? I asked, engaging the bard in conversation. Indeed, my friend, I be the world-renowned Covengloom. Perhaps there's a particular ballad of mine that you'd like me to perform? Ah, I'm certain you'd love to hear my latest work. It tells the thrilling tale of a gargoyle brought to life by a rogue guild sorcerer, one that nearly bested Covengloom. But fear not, for Covengloom's agility triumphed over the stone beast, as he vanquished it with a swift jab of his dagger hilt. You bested an animated gargoyle with a mere blunt strike? I questioned, my disbelief rather evident. Indeed, Covengloom has been known to accomplish many wondrous feats. Or perhaps you'd rather hear the tale of how he filled his pockets with ice and used it to scale a treacherous mountain. It was becoming increasingly apparent that Covengloom's grip on reality was tenuous. I stood for a moment and just watched him as he hopped on the spot, presumably trying to keep himself warm. That sounds like quite the tale, I said, and my stomach let out a ferocious growl. My friend, Covengloom exclaimed, you are famished. No, Come, join Covengloom by the fire and indulge. Summon your funny friend. There's enough for all the world. My funny friend? I questioned. Oh, he never fails to make me laugh. Ha ha! Covengloom released a hearty laugh. I beckoned Gadek over, and reluctantly he joined us by the fire. Covengloom fetched 3 large steaks from inside the tent, although I could not discern the source of the meat. Gadek's eyes lit up at the sight, his mouth watering in anticipation. Wait, Gadek interrupted as Covengloom began searing the meat over the flames. What's the catch? Excuse? Said Covengloom, feigning confusion. The catch, Gadek repeated. What do you expect in return for this meat? I've encountered your type before. You entertainers, for the lack of a better word. You don't do anything for nothing. Oh no, you've got Covengloom there, chuckled Covengloom. I may have feathers, but I am not a fish. Gadek glowered at me intensely. So, Covengloom, I interjected, what would you like in exchange for this food? We can pay you, we have coin. Oh, no, Covengloom waved a hand dismissively, placing the first steak aside and attending to the next. Covengloom does not accept payment in gold, silver, men, or women. Then what? Gadek persisted. Covengloom trades in stories. Stories? I repeated. Yes, stories. How else is Covengloom expected to create fresh and captivating ballads on a regular basis? So the tales in your ballads are not truly your own? I inquired. No! Covengloom screamed abruptly, launching the steak he was cooking far out into the wilderness. Gadek and I exchanged a concerning glance. Covengloom apologizes, he said, exhaling deeply. Sometimes Covengloom grows frustrated when he hears things he does not like. I see, I nodded. I may not be a giant, but that does not mean I must possess spare teeth, Covengloom continued. Oh dear, Delilah will not be so joyful this evening, not now that Covengloom has wasted a lovely piece of meat. Delilah? I asked. Why? Grunted Gadek through his teeth. Why did you have to ask? Delilah is Covengloom's loving wife, the bard explained. Wherever Covengloom goes, Delilah comes with. Then where is she now? I asked, looking all around us. Is she inside the tent? Ha 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 ha! Covengloom burst into uncontrollable laughter. And here Covengloom thought your friend was a humorous one. He's delightful, isn't he, Delilah? An awkward silence hung in the air for some time. Who are you talking to? I eventually inquired. Delilah, of course. Covengloom removed his hat from his head and inserted his hand into its interior, turning it inside out. The lining bore a painted portrait of a fair-haired woman. Oh, my apologies, dear, he said almost immediately after exposing the painting, and he quickly reversed the hat and placed it back on his head. It's a little too chilly for Delilah to be out in the open. Observing Covengloom, I estimated him to be in his mid to late 30s, although his energy resembled that of a much younger man. Are you getting another steak? Gadek asked, seemingly concerned that one of us would go without. Yes, certainly, Covengloom replied, turning to return to the tent. However, he halted and spun back around. Sorry, dear. Yes, no waste. Covengloom shall return momentarily. Quick, lad, we're leaving, Gedake urged as Covengloom scampered into the distance, searching for the discarded steak. But the steak. You think I'm not disappointed? Grab that when he finished cooking. We'll share it on the way. Hurry, before he comes prancing back over here. And that's
Oh,
that.
now I'm gonna have to read the rest of your book. I'm obsessed with Coven Gloom. Who is this man?
I don't know how much I can say about Covengloom without spoiling too much, but he is only in this chapter and then one more chapter in the book. He's not in very much, but he's
Oh.
going to be much more in the book after that I'm going to be writing. But yeah, I have a whole plan for who he is and his backstory, and it is very interesting. It's a bit tragic as well, but yeah, he was one of my favorite things to write when I was writing this. Just
Mm-hmm.
the idea of his character, this really
Yeah.
eccentric, kind of crazy bard.
Yeah.
And
I
there
love
is
that.
there is something to him as well that's kind of unhinged, like the part where he was like no, and he threw the steak, like he freaked out about something, and so that's just like the sort of undertones, just hinting that there's maybe some like maybe a bit of a darker side to him as well.
I always admire the way you make things flow in your stories. Like nothing seems out of place or awkward. It's just you get into the story right away. It's
Yeah.
very intriguing and immersive.
Yeah, I've said this before, but it's very much I'm jumping right into the dialogue and you hear them go
Mm-hmm.
back and forth. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes my descriptions of things kind of suffer because of it. Like I'm not you don't really get much of a view of what's around them or where they're sitting
No, but
or
I sort of
anything.
I can get a feeling. I can get the
You get the
vibe.
vibes. Yeah.
You put in some descriptions there, and even sometimes in their dialogue, you can tell some
Mm.
things from their surroundings. So I feel like it's very well done, well written.
Thanks for that. But I had a lot of fun just writing that conversation. I thought that was it was quite fun. I like Coven Gloom. Even the name, I don't even know how I came up with a name. I spent a little while trying to think of a good name for this character. And yeah, I've got. I can't wait to write more about him. Just as I read that, I'm like,
Carbon
yes, I
Gloom.
need to write more because
Mm-hmm.
he has a lot of fun to write about. And I
Yeah.
like his absolutely bizarre dialogue. Like, I may not have feathers, but I am not a fish. It's like what? It's like fish don't have feathers
Yeah.
either.
But you're so good at coming up with these sort of like weird weird concepts and people that I don't think I ever could come up with something like that and make it funny, you know? But you make these things very funny to read or hear about.
I mean, maybe you could, but maybe you couldn't, but maybe you could. I mean, that's something you need to try. I mean, it's not. It's
Yeah, but I've tried
you never know.
writing some funny type stories, and I
Hmm.
don't think I'm that's not where I shine.
Yeah,
Definitely
it's
where you shine though.
it's also not probably your preferred type of humor, so it's probably not the type of thing you would write either. Whereas I like a lot of the really absurd stuff. That's so to me like that's hilarious. It's so absurd and makes not much
Well,
sense.
I like reading about it. That's like
Yeah.
I love funny weird fantasy type of
Hmm.
things. It feels kind of like, Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah, I
Those
like that.
books, I've read those books, and
Well, I've never
sometimes
read the books, but I like the
they're
books.
just yeah, in the books, there's a lot of crazy stuff happening all the time and lots of weird magic going on.
Yeah.
And I feel like I really love reading things like that. And you often have those kinds of vibes in your stories as well.
Hmm.
Just so many ideas, so many creative things.
So many creative things.
So
Yeah.
many creative
Uh,
things.
I try. I try. Ideas are my big. I like ideas. I like
Yeah.
little weird ideas. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with that, as I said.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, reading it makes me want to get back to writing more because it's been so long since I
Yes,
wrote any.
please. I just
Uh,
gotta hurry up and read the rest of your book, and I'll tell you to write the next one so
yeah,
I
you'll be
can
like,
read more.
hurry up, do it.
Yeah, hurry up so I can
Yeah.
read more.
I was trying so hard to choose a part of the book to read that didn't spoil too much. That was the main thing I was
Yeah,
trying to do. And this was good because it was a
this
very
was perfect.
self-contained, yeah, it was a self-contained little scene where you don't really know much of anything else that's happening. It doesn't really even say why they're there. It doesn't tell you anything really about some of the characters. It's very self-contained. So it didn't spoil anything. There was a couple of other things I would have liked to read that I preferred, but I thought no, they give away too much and they spoil too much stuff. So I was like, nah, I'm not going to read those.
No, but this was a perfect, like, a little piece of your book to read out, I feel like, because it shows the type of story it is and the type of writing you do very well. Even though there's not a lot of like, spoilers. It still
Well, I was
shows
also
like
going to
the
say,
vibe.
you say it's a good thing to choose to like represent the book,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm actually not sure that is so true because I
It's
feel like
true.
I feel like
I
this
feel like
sort of content is not the majority of the book.
maybe not, but there's a lot of this type of
Yeah,
thing.
there is. Yeah,
And those parts are my favorites. Like with some of the people, they have more of this vibe, this more like banter sort of vibe. With what's his name again? You know, I like him. B.
Oh, Bacipus. Yeah,
Yes,
Bacipus
and
and Beryl. Sorry,
his
Beryl.
guy. Yeah,
Yeah,
both of them.
yeah. It was actually almost one of Beryl's
Mm-hmm.
chapters. I was going to read a part of that out, but I didn't want it. It was
Yeah,
too spoiler filled, so I didn't. But yeah, you did say that was your favorite of my point of view characters. So.
yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. And yeah, I get what you mean. It's got that banter there. And I think I do very well when I have that. I think that's one of my
Yeah,
better
like
things
in
that I do.
your crime story.
Yes, that was a good example of that as
Mm-hmm.
well. Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
Meow. So, shall we move on to your little story?
Yes, sure.
Yes, sure. Don't make it sound like such a chore.
Just give me a sec to breathe.
I feel like I'm getting progressively more red as this goes on. When I'm here, I'm less red.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually changing color.
Wow, you're a superhero that can change color.
Stripey wipey. Red stripes.
Red stripes. A new shameful passion rises and creates a mist around her trajectory. It's yet another fruit that has fallen to become one with the ground. Perfectly edible before being stepped on and bruised only so a hand can reach for the one still hanging. The fruit she can never speak of. The beautiful stained thing that will sink its teeth into her neck instead, if she so dares to bring it up to her lips to take a bite. She picks it up to hide in her pocket full of oddities. The firm presence, a comfort in the low tides of her mind. Like a mattress she falls into at the end of the day. Knowing something is always going to paint the walls of her mind with the green patterns of algae as the fluctuations of the vast sea rampages in her. It's there, even if the life she's compelled to share with an ever-blurring list of people crumble beneath her. Crumble as it often does, as it burns her nimble fingers and slowly takes on different forms of torture, to poke and prod at her with shards of glass that hauntingly reflect the pain-stricken expression she adorns. With each stab, her palm unremittingly fumbles to find her pocket, fingers closing around the misleading things. She asks them why. Why can't she swallow them all whole, when they're so much more delicious than the fruits still attached to their stem? Stems which have a belief as constraining as a clasped claw. She can only scowl at the tree and its stems, appalled by how it releases its fruit once it senses a whiff of rot, abandoning faulty ones to plunge to the soil, untouched by the world as they break and crumble. I didn't.
The first thing I need to ask was, is this about yourself?
No, it's about the world.
So it's okay. I just thought parts of it kind of made me think of maybe the way you were thinking about yourself, like at the start. I don't know if this is what you meant by it, but at the start you were talking about the edible fruits that were hanging there, and you're raising for the ones hanging, even though other ones have already fallen. And it's like that idea of, I know it's, you have so many interests about different little things, and it's like you want to do this thing, this thing, this thing, and this thing, and you always want to do a new thing rather than the thing you're already doing.
Oh, that's true as well. That's
So
a good
that's yeah.
interpretation.
So
That could be
immediately when you
true.
read that sort of beginning first couple of lines, my initial feelings were, oh, is this about you talking about maybe using some sort of metaphor to describe your own sort of internal feelings? But I guess not. But
Yeah, well, it
it does
is.
double as that.
it is my feelings,
Yeah.
but it's also like my feelings about the world or like how
Mm.
people function, like
So about people in
in
general,
yeah, like society, how it works. Going for the like pretty, like the healthy, pretty looking things.
rather than the ones that are just as good, but they're maybe a little bit bruised or something on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of really good metaphors and stuff in here. I liked even the part where you were talking about how, like a mattress, she falls into at the end of the day, about the
Mm-hmm.
low tides of her mind. There's a very, I don't want to use the word calm and comforting because it's really not. It's kind of depressing, but even though it is dealing with sort of heavy subject matter, it has those sort of soft calm vibes to it. It's not
Yeah.
something that's making me feel, oh, this is horrible.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like a chill. Things are kind of shit sometimes. The world's, it's
Yeah.
you've taken a hit of a joint or something, and then you're coming up with this rather than actually actively being sad about it.
Yeah.
So I do like that. Yeah, and I liked there. I mean, I'm just going to read another part, but right after that, you about the paint the walls of her mind green with the green patterns of algae as the fluctuations of the vastly rampages in her. So it's that whole thing as well. It's you're painting and it's calm, but at the same time you've got the chaos and the aggression and the strength of that sea coming at it as well. So
Mm.
it's very contrasting there. Yeah, you had a lot of things like that in here that I did like. I like the very last line where you said, "Appalled by how it releases its fruit once it senses a whiff of rot, abandoning faulty ones to plunge to the soil, untouched by the world as they break and crumble." I like that. Just I like how it just ends on that note of break and crumble. No, I do like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is again, this is one of my favorite things of yours I've read. This and
Really?
the other poem was one of my favorite poems of yours I might have read, and this is one of my favorite little story things that you've read.
Wow, thank
I really like
you.
it. I think it really resonates, and I think there's a lot of double meanings. This is almost in the it's almost a poetic style
Yeah.
because of the meanings and the vagueness and the metaphors and all the
Mm.
imagery in here. It's very poetic. It's very deep and
Yeah.
meaningful, even though it's very short. And I think this works very well in the fact that it's short. You've
Mm-hmm.
said a lot. You've said a lot here. You've said a lot more here than a lot of people would using 5 times these amount of words. So I think there
Yeah.
is a good commentary here about a lot of things, and yeah, I do like it. Every time I look back at it, there's another part that catches my eye. I'm looking again, the beautiful stained thing that will sink its teeth into her neck instead, if she so dares to bring it to her lips to take a bite. She picks it up to hide in her pocket full of oddities. Yeah, again, that was another one I thought that was still moving on. I thought was that you talking kind of about yourself and interests and taking things, but yeah, I think it does have that double meaning as far as I'm concerned. It's like yeah, there's some double meaning there, but I like it. It's all great.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a style I sort of like writing the most, but it also takes the most time
Mm.
because yeah, these both of these I feel like are heavily edited.
Yeah,
Like I go through it many times and
yeah,
sort of think about each sentence very deeply, and I do like that, and I like how it turns out more often.
yeah. Even though it's
Um,
short, you've packed a lot into every sentence. There are no empty sentences here. Every sentence, every word is used very well and very carefully because it has been refined and refined over and over again. So
yeah,
that makes sense. And I think it does show, and I think it does shine when you write these sorts of things because it's things that you have managed to perfect and reflect on, rather than say when you've written some 1,000 word story or something that you've kind of rambled through because you've not
yeah,
edited it or not had time to go back. Whereas I think you would much rather have 500 words of something that's very deep than have 1,500
mm-hmm,
words of something with, say, a huge plot or something. I think to you, I mean,
yeah,
that's the impression I get
definitely.
anyway. And I think you do shine a little bit more when you do that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think so too. So I feel like I do want to write more sort of plot heavy fantasy stuff, but I
Mm.
feel like I have to practice sort of mixing in sort of the aspects I enjoy
Yeah.
without it getting too much or taking away from the plot or story, you know?
Yeah, you have to find there's a happy
Balance.
balance to be found. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the story with everything in life, isn't it? It's always finding the balance with whatever it is. I think
True.
this sort of style is maybe something we could uh, do in future as some sort of episode theme.
Mm-hmm.
Not, I don't know how we'd word it, but it could
Yeah.
be some sort of theme where it's maybe more actually. It's almost philosophy based. It's like write like the prompt would be something like write a short passage about I don't know about the way mankind views this or the way I don't know
Mm-hmm.
society does it. You know what I'm trying to say, like something
Yeah, I
about
know.
that, or and it gives a different sort of open-ended way of
Mm-hmm.
approaching this style of writing that I think it lends very well to, because it is kind of philosophical in that way.
I feel like your poem for the journaling episode
Mm,
was very much philosophical in a way and
yeah,
very sort of deeper than you'd usually go, even though you do have a lot of like more depressing type of stories as well. But I think that one stood out to me with the descriptions and
yeah,
sort of more something you can think about later.
yeah. I
Like,
agree,
yeah.
and yeah, and I again, I definitely feel that with this story you've got. Definitely this is definitely up there with one of my favorite things that I've seen you write. So
Oh, thank
good
you.
job on that. When
Yeah.
did you write this?
Probably a year ago or something.
Nice. So not too distant from when you wrote that poem.
I feel like that's when, like 2 years ago, maybe was when I started writing a bit more creatively.
Now I am going to read an extract of a screenplay I wrote a couple of years ago now. This was one of the first screenplays I've ever written. I've done a couple of drafts of it, and this is a few scenes. It's a bit strange, and the title of the screenplay is Don't Eat the Hare Before Breakfast. Back to the hare theme, I just realized we've got more hare. Like we
Here,
constantly seem to be
here.
talking about hare.
Yeah, but this is not
Yeah.
here, here. This is
No.
a here,
Or is it?
the animal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it the
Okay.
here?
Maybe it's a double meaning.
Oh, why is everything here themed? That's
I
kind
don't
of
know.
crazy.
It wasn't on purpose. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
last week's episode with the dream stuff, and then this, and we've been talking. You've been licking the cat hair. Just so much hair. And we've been doing streams on Twitch playing Diablo, and our characters are hair
Yeah,
and hair liquor. It's just
right.
so weird. But
It
yeah,
is.
anyway, I was pretty happy with this screenplay. I intended to turn it into a short film.
Mm,
It's like 35 pages long, so it's probably normally a screenplay. It's a minute a page, so it's probably about a 35-minute short film. But I've just never managed to get the right people all at the right time around me to record it, which is the only reason I haven't. Anyway, one day, hopefully, but we're going to jump right into it. And I'm going to be doing some voices, and Zilver is going to do one of the characters for one of the scenes as well. So that'll be fun when we get to it. Don't eat the hare before breakfast. This is starting at the second scene. So I'm skipping the first scene of the screenplay. This is the second scene of the screenplay. Exterior car park day. Ray is speaking with Grace. There are no people around. There is tension and some awkwardness. Grace is very stiff and robotic. Ray contrasts her by being a bit more loose and erratic. Thank you for meeting me. I know you prefer to sleep late on Tuesdays. As you know, I do not. I have to work early on Tuesdays. It's okay, I think. I haven't quite decided yet. Will you decide soon? I don't know. There's silence for a long time. They both look past each other and around the car park. It's very awkward. Is this a drug deal? No, Ray, this is not a drug deal. Would you like it if it were? I don't think so. Drugs scare me. Not as much as crocodiles scare you, but more than wasps scare me. If this was a drug deal, do you think it would go well? I think it would. No one is around to see us. Would you like to have intercourse in my car? With you? Yes, Grace. With me. Grace looks at her wrist as though she were checking a watch. There is nothing on her wrist. Time is escaping me. I do hear it getting away. The screams are not pleasant, in my opinion. I'm breaking up with you. You're breaking up with me? Yes, I am breaking up with you. Ray starts shifting around on the spot, clearly upset. Grace remains stoic. Why are you breaking up with me? Have you met someone else? No, I have not. I don't like you anymore, Ray. You are bad at singing, and your shampoo smells of egg. Your sister bought me that shampoo. Yes, she always hated you. I should have listened to her earlier. If I were a violent criminal, I would beat you over the head and throw you in the boot of my car. No one would ever see you again. There is silence for a moment as Grace ponders what Ray just said. Ray? Yes. Are you a violent criminal? No, Grace. I am not. Then I am glad. Thank you for not hitting me over the head and stuffing me in the boot of your car. You're welcome. Interior bar, day. Tony, a man in his mid-30s, is sitting alone at the bar. He is doodling on a notepad. The bar is mostly empty. Only a couple of customers sitting around the edges of the room. A smiley middle-aged woman, Joan, is working behind the bar. She notices Tony has finished his drink. Can I get you something else? Tony gives an uncertain nod of his head. I don't think you should have the same drink again. It's a very bitter drink, and my mother always said that bitter drinks make your soul go sour. A sour soul all but guarantees you'll end up in hell. Do you want to end up in hell, Tony? Tony is rigid. He shakes his head side to side to signal he does not want to end up in hell. So, same again? Tony quickly nods his head in affirmation. That's not correct, Tony. Joan stares Tony dead in the eye. Tony looks uncomfortable and shuffles around on the bar stool. What can I get you? Tony swallows hard and dips his head down to his notepad. Tony is mute, so he uses his notepad to communicate. Tony writes something on his notepad and then turns it to let Joan see. Not what I would have chosen, but you'll be right. Joan turns away to go sort Tony's drink. A younger woman, Ingrid, in her 20s, approaches the bar and stands beside Tony. She appears to be a little intoxicated.
I will pay now.
You may pay with your money after I have sorted this drink. Exercise patience. I am not a horse, Ingrid.
Of course, I would not say you were a horse. I think you resemble an owl, much more.
Tony's face lights up. He has an idea. He begins doodling with determination. It is desirable to be able to turn my head all the way around. That is something that mice cannot do.
Did you know that mice make for fantastic gymnasts? I once saw a video of a mouse on a trapeze. It was very amusing.
Yes, Ingrid, I did know that. Mice are my favourite animals. They are much better than roast pork.
I never cared much for roast pork. I'm glad all the pigs are dead.
Tony taps Ingrid on the shoulder and draws her attention to his latest doodle. Ingrid looks confused. She takes a moment to figure out what the doodle is supposed to be.
Oh, it's a bagel. Very good.
Tony shakes his head to indicate that Ingrid misunderstood. He pulls back his notepad and writes something beside his drawing before turning it back to let Ingrid see.
That looks nothing like Joan.
Tony pulls his notepad back and makes a final adjustment to his drawing. He then shows it to Ingrid once more.
A rabbit? How marvelous. Yes, Joan does look as though she eats carrots and runs away from men with guns.
Joan approaches. She is carrying Tony's drink. She sets the glass down in front of him, then snatches his notebook to look at his drawing. Here!
I beg your pardon?
Begging has no place in polite society. Joan tosses Tony's notepad back onto the bar.
That reminds me of a television program I saw recently.
There is silence for a short time. Ingrid and Joan avoid eye contact while standing idly. Tony writes something down on his notepad. That is mildly interesting, though not interesting enough for me to ask you about. Tony taps Ingrid on the arm to get her attention, then shows her what he wrote down.
What is your favorite animal?
Ingrid hands Tony's notepad back to him. He writes down his answer, then shows it to her.
I don't like foxes. They are the natural enemy of my favorite animal, which is a rabbit. We are incompatible.
Tony lowers his head. He seems both disappointed and a little upset. Do you have your money?
Yes.
Okay. Joan turns around and walks a few steps away, then begins counting her fingers and working something out.
Your drawings are interesting, Foxman.
Tony brightens a little, then writes something on his notepad for Ingrid to read.
Yes, you should put them on the internet. People are often very kind in my experience.
Joan returns from what she was doing. She stretches out her arm across the bar and holds her palm open in front of Ingrid's face. More than 19? Less than 21. Ingrid places money in Joan's hand. She has been holding it since the beginning of the conversation.
I used to be that age. It was not my favorite age.
Joan takes the money and places it on the back of her wrist. She strokes the money with her other hand, then looks up at Ingrid with a big grin. Thank you. I enjoy money. There is a brief silence while all three of them look off in different directions.
My friend is waiting outside. Goodbye.
Ingrid turns around and leaves the bar. Tony and Joan continue staring in different directions, silent for a short time. Suddenly, Joan turns back to Tony and grabs his notepad and rips out a page of his doodles. Tony cowers and looks distraught as Joan crushes the page into a ball and throws it across the room. Hare ears are longer than rabbit ears. Interior, gambling room, night. Ray is sitting at a table alone. There are playing cards spread on the table. He is playing some sort of card game. A woman, Helga, enters the room and approaches Ray. She remains standing. Ray does not look at her. I've never been snorkeling before. Snorkeling in yogurt seems impractical. Silence while Ray continues playing cards. Are you enjoying your game? Ray does not respond, just continues playing his game. Is that... Ray abruptly pushes his chair out and springs to his feet. He keeps staring forward, does not acknowledge Helga. I sit alone with a table and a chair, so unhappy there, playing solitaire. Ray sits back down, tucking in his chair as he does. He reshuffles the cards on the table and continues playing. You're not very good at this game. Singing is one of my 12 passions. Ray lifts his glass from the table to take a drink, but it is empty. He turns to acknowledge Helga. Do you work here? No. Whiskey. Neat. Ray hands Helga his empty glass. Helga pauses for a moment before turning and leaving to fetch him a drink. Ray continues playing cards in silence until Helga returns with his drink. Whiskey. Neat. Shh! Ray looks focused as he continues playing cards. He does not look at Helga, but taps twice on the table, signaling for her to set his drink down. Helga stands by the table for a while as Ray continues to play. I have a son who... Ray abruptly stands up again, pushing his chair far back as he does. All by myself in the night. Ray sits back down and pulls in his chair again. Helga feels foolish. She turns and scurries out of the room while Ray sips his drink. Not long after, a man, Francis, enters the room and approaches the opposite side of Ray's table. He stands and observes Ray for a few moments. Card game. No cows. Only paper. Ray stands up and looks Francis in the eye. Indeed.
That was
interesting.
Very... There was a lot happening.
Yeah.
A lot happening. And I feel like that would be a very funny, like, short film.
Yeah.
I hope you make it someday.
I do as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's the final scene. There's like a few bits more that come after that, but I decided to stop it there because it went on too long.
Such a toxic man making the girl go get his drink. She said no, she doesn't work there, you bitch.
That's one of my favorite parts. Do you work here? No. Whiskey, neat.
Yeah. That was... yeah.
Yeah.
Typical.
I laughed a lot writing this. Like, there's even just the fact that he just stands up and starts singing. It just interrupts her speaking with this, the random singing.
Yeah, that could be you, to be honest.
No, if I make this, I am going to be Ray. So
yeah,
I wrote that part for me.
Mm-hmm. I do imagine that. Yeah.
Yeah, and singing is one of his 12 passions.
12 passions, same though. I feel that.
You don't even really get much of a sense of what this thing's about from these scenes.
No, I'm like, what is actually going on though?
Yeah, it's partly because I skipped the very first scene. The first scene actually starts, and then it says 3 months earlier, and then it starts where I started reading earlier.
Oh,
so you actually see the end of basically the final, like the second last scene comes at the very start, and it's like
Okay.
3 months earlier because something's happened, and it involves something bad happening to Ray. So it's so it all kind of ends up leading up to find out what happened to get him into that situation. I had a lot of fun writing this one for sure,
Yeah, it
and
was very
yeah,
fun to listen to and be a part of.
yeah. And
I yeah.
honestly, I think most of the lines you read them pretty accurately to what I would want. This whole thing
Okay.
is supposed to be almost, if you imagine it, it's a very bleak world where suck emotions out a little bit. Like people are a little
Mm-hmm.
bit emotionally dumb and
Yeah, I could tell that
dull.
with the couple. They were just like,
Yeah,
"I'm breaking up with you." Oh no. Okay, I don't like you anymore. Okay, goodbye. You know, very
and they're
like.
also very matter of fact. Like no
Mm-hmm.
one keeps their thoughts to themselves. It's like he's just saying, "Would you like to have intercourse?" And she's like, "No." And then or it's there was the points earlier as well when she's like, "Oh, we're not compatible. I like this
Mm-hmm.
animal," or "I like," and it's just randomly volunteering information that no one cares about because as soon as something's on their mind, they just feel like they have to be sharing it.
You know
Um,
what's funny? I put a little mark here so I could read it again. I don't like you anymore, Ray. You are bad at singing. That part, I was like, okay. Um, when I was like probably 8, I had
mhm.
like a boyfriend at school, and he broke up with me because I refused to sing in front of a bunch of like our friends. So that was a very funny thing. Yeah.
That is funny. That's sad.
I know. He was
Jesus,
like, "You're boring. You won't even sing in front of these people. That's so boring." And he broke up with me. So
that's
I
hilarious.
was like, okay.
Yeah,
No, that just reminded me of my past. That's what I was
yeah. Okay.
thinking about there. Okay.
Take it.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm very, very excited to see like the whole story and what actually goes on and what happens to Ray, because you said something bad happens to him. That's an interesting thing, and he probably deserves it. Yeah.
Some of the stuff actually that I wrote in this has inspired some of the stuff. For example, when we made the short film The Fool, some
Mhm.
of the stuff that I wrote for The Fool, I actually
Mhm.
took some inspiration from this film that I never made. Namely,
Oh.
just some of the stuff about like the shots with like the stalking coming up the stairs and stuff.
Mhm.
That's actually how this film starts. It's
Okay.
you don't see the presence, but it's almost like someone's approaching Ray's apartment and someone's coming to get him type thing. And a lot of the
Oh.
shots that I had in mind for this were what we ended up
Mhm.
doing for The Fool. And then there's a scene
Oh.
with Ray ends up like he's been almost kidnapped, and it's very similar to it's not as silly or anything as that one,
Mhm.
but well, actually, in some ways it is, but it's a totally different thing. Anyway, but
Mhm.
just the setup of it is very similar.
Okay.
Yeah,
You shouldn't spoil too much because you're gonna make this someday.
sure, but you see all this in the very first scene anyway.
Okay. But yeah, I'm
Anyway,
excited. You gotta make this work. I feel like it's gonna be very
yeah,
fun.
I actually because in there's the scene I just read about the bar, and there's
Mhm.
another scene later in the same bar, and the bar across from me where I go all the time, and I
Mhm.
spoke to the owner there ages ago because I actually was going to give her the role of Joan. I wrote that, and I thought I had
Mhm.
her in mind for Joan,
Yeah.
and she said I could film in there and she would play that part. So I had that kind of set up. I had that, and I had my friend from Alabama. I wrote the role of Tony with him in mind,
Mhm.
which was great. Um, Really, the only people I had left to cast that in mind that I haven't casted were Ingrid and also
Mhm.
Grace from the parking lot scene. But Grace is only in that one scene. The bigger part was Ingrid because she's like the biggest part remaining that I didn't have cast. That was the harder
Mhm.
part to get. Just getting someone who had the right sort of fit for it and the right age.
Mhm.
Um, which is why I said to you before, like you would have been good for that role because I feel like you would have fit it. But
The one I
just
read.
yeah, the one you read.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
yeah. Definitely the best role for me out of those roles. So
Yeah.
yeah.
You're the first person that I've probably been speaking to that I thought, "Oh, you would probably fit that role." I had yet to find anyone else that I thought they would do good for that.
Yeah, because everything I
Yeah.
say sounds like sarcasm anyways. Even
Yeah, but
when I don't mean to.
but really that role not being cast and having the right person to play is probably the reason I've not made it.
Yeah,
So
plus I'm like half across the world
yeah. Well, when you were
right
in
now.
Scotland, we could have, but then the problem was I didn't have Tony, and wrote that for my friend in Alabama, so it was
Yeah.
like that I needed him for that, so it was again it didn't line up, so that was
Hmm.
unfortunate. But one day maybe it'll
One
work out.
day.
Anyway, had enough reading, had enough all that.
Hmm.
We're done. Are we done? We done for today?
We're
We're done with our.
done.
It was kind of fun reading
Yay!
things. I liked hearing your little
Yeah.
stories. I said as well, like your poem and your story were two of your best things I've read. Two of my favorite
Oh,
things of yours
thank
I've read,
you.
especially the story. I really, really liked that little story. That
Thank
was
you.
really good.
I also enjoyed hearing more of a screenplay type of thing you've done because I've obviously read your scripts before because we've done 2 films together.
Mm.
But this was a whole other type of vibe,
Yeah.
and it was more on the funny side, like sort of like maybe what some of the videos you've done before.
I wouldn't say this is anything like any video I've done before, but it's probably the type of writing I'm interested in
Yeah.
because it's a bit strange. Whereas the ones I wrote for the stuff we did, I
Hmm.
wrote them specifically in mind, knowing that you like certain vibes or like you like
Yeah,
something that's maybe a
dark
bit
and
darker, and so I specifically wrote them with that in mind. And I was
yeah.
also kind of interested in exploring that because I'd never written any of those sort of dark horror
Hmm.
thriller type things before. So that's why I wrote those then. But
Yeah.
really, this is the type of thing that I would rather make more of. This is like the
Hmm.
thing, if I'm doing whatever, this is my sort of
Yeah, but
vision of the experimental, weird sort
yeah,
of stuff.
I think you thrive doing sort of a bit more funny or weird. I
Yeah.
think that's where you shine truly. Um, and you know how to make things funny.
Mm,
You know, like how to write dialogue very well. I feel like it
mm,
doesn't feel unnatural for people to say any of these things, even though they're weird.
yeah.
It doesn't feel like, oh, like people say something like that. It's more like very natural, very cool. I'm excited to see if you make this into a thing and if
Yeah.
I'm gonna be in it.
I actually, the last thing I'll say about this, I actually want to rewrite the final couple of scenes. I'm not very happy with the final couple of scenes in the script. I've just never really
Hmm.
revisited it. There's a couple of things I'd like to change about how it ends. I think it kind of gets to a point where I like all the setup and then I'm not sure
Mm-hmm.
about how it actually pays off in the end.
Mm.
But we'll see when I actually go back to it again. It's been a while. It's been a couple of years since I tried to tackle it, so I'm sure I'll go back to it eventually. Anyway, I think we're done. We're
Mm-hmm.
done. Been a fun episode.
Yeah.
Everyone go check out ghostbookarchive.com for all of our links, all of our socials. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube, follow us on Spotify, all the rest of it to stay up to date with the podcast.
We're also streaming on Twitch now, so if you want to watch some streams, we are playing currently. We're playing Diablo, but we've also thought about different games we're gonna try out, so check it
Yeah,
out.
so Ghostbook Archive on Twitch for the unscheduled streams because we don't really have a stream scheduled.
Okay, thanks for
Okay,
watching.
okay, okay.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Bye, 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 bye.